We're now going to be listening to candidates running for UNL Regent there, Senator LaVon Heidemann and Mike Jones. I'd like to remind everyone that we are being broadcast live on Channel 9, and this forum is being videotaped and will be shown several times again between now and election time. Each candidate will have a 2-minute introduction and then be allowed 2 minutes for each question. Questions tonight are being asked were submitted to the Chamber of Commerce from the community. If the audience would like to submit a question, please write it down on a piece of paper and one of our assistants will bring it to the front. All questions asked should pertain to business-related questions, and at the end of the answer period, each candidate will be allowed 2 minutes for the summation. Before we started, we drew names, and Senator Heidemann, you were the lucky one, so you get to go first.
I want to thank the Chamber for putting this on, this opportunity to meet and greet and get out and let everybody know our thoughts and our views on the Board of Regents race. I was born and raised in Pawnee County, Nebraska, married. My wife's name is Robin, and we have 3 children, Jared, Michaela, and Brian, who are scattered out across the state of Nebraska. My wife is actually in Oglala today with our daughter, who just had our 3rd grandson. So she's out there. I farm in Pawnee County and Johnson County. After graduation from high school, I got involved in public service almost right away. I got on the local fire board, Elk Creek Fire Board. In the 1990s, I got elected to Elk Creek School Board. And in 2004, there was an opportunity to run for the legislature. And my wife and I talked about it, and we decided at that time that if I felt the desire, and I did, to run for the legislature. And after campaigning hard and getting our message out, we was elected, and for the last 8 years, I've been able to serve as state senator from District 1. It's been a very rewarding experience, and I've been able to accomplish far more than what I ever could have imagined. I've been chair of the Appropriations Committee for the last 6 years, one of the most powerful positions in the legislature, and it has been a good experience. I am being termed out of the legislature because we have term limits in Nebraska, and this opportunity to run for the Board of Regents come up, and Robin and I talked about it, and we prayed about it, and we decided to put our name in and run.
Thank you, Senator Heidemann. Mr. Jones, would you like to give us your 2-minute introduction?
Sure would. Thank you to the Chamber, too, for hosting this event. I think it's marvelous that you're helping the voters find out the differences between your candidates, and I'm proud to be a part of that. I want to acknowledge my family that's here, Joni, my wife, for 36 years, our son Grant and his wife Nicole, who live here and manage our branch office, our daughter Greta, and the friends and supporters that are with us. We appreciate them attending. I'm here to ask for your vote. That's the whole point of this election, and I'll give you a little background. I was born and raised to a farm family in southwest Nebraska. Went to the University of Nebraska, where I earned bachelor's and master's degrees in education. Spent a fair amount of time teaching and coaching. Then had a experience in ag lending in the banking industry. And entrepreneurship grabbed my attention, so we began our own business from scratch, an independent insurance agency housed in David City, of which one branch is here in Beatrice, where Grant and Nicole and their daughter Madeline are making their home, and really enjoy being a part of your community. I'm an educator, a business owner, and a fiscal conservative. I think that it's very important that we remain focused on concerns that voters bring to us about affordable tuition, still demanding high academic excellence, quality education for our students with an opportunity to succeed once they get out in the workforce, and the new Rural Futures Institute, which really brings great promise to our rural communities and our agricultural interests. So those are my big key points: affordable tuition, our communities out in the rural sector, quality education, and delivery on the promise that we've made to all those students that are eligible.
Thank you, Mr. Jones. And you're going to start off with our first question. What experience or experiences do you have that qualifies you to be University Regent?
Well, I think first of all, being born and raised in Nebraska, and you get the groundwork laid for you as a youngster. So my parents laid out the fiber for me as in terms of honesty, integrity, and hard work. I think the educational experience of the university, an institution of higher learning, is critical when you want to understand what those students go through and what it is like to pay back a student loan. My experience in the business industry in terms of banking and starting my own business from scratch, where you have to learn how to deal with budgets and hiring and, yes, firing people, all are a breadth of experience that I can bring to the Board of Regents when we want to represent this district.
Thank you, Mr. Jones. Senator Hyman, I'm going to give you the same question. What experience or experiences do you have that qualifies you to be a regent?
I have almost a lifelong experience of being a public servant, first as a member of a fire board, the local school board, and then 8 years in the state legislature. I have worked hard in the legislature. I use common sense, and I have gained a lot of respect from my hard work and common sense in the way I approach things in the legislature. I've gained a lot of experience through the budgeting process, being the chair of appropriations. I've built relationships with my fellow senators that I think will be something that will be very useful as a member of the Board of Regents. I've built relationships with the top officials at the university system by being a member of the legislature, and especially on the board of on the Committee of Appropriations. I've got to know President Milliken very well, and all of the chancellors, and I'll be able to take that experience and those relationships that I've built up over the last 8 years, and I use them very well as a member of the Board of Regents.
Thank you, Senator. You get to start off with the next question. The University of Nebraska is one of the larger items of the state of Nebraska's budget. Do you feel the percentage of costs split between students and the state should stay the same or change?
Over the last 8 years, I've been part of a key part of what the university gets for funding from the state of Nebraska. And although it has been a struggle, across all 50 states over the last 3 or 4 years to fund higher education. We in the state of Nebraska did a very good job of picking priorities in higher education. The university system was part of that priority. And even though that we wish we could have funded them at a higher level, when you look across the country and all the slashes to the university systems into higher education, we was able to fund them at a level where we was able to keep tuition affordable. So the split between what students pay and what government puts in the state of Nebraska, you always strive to keep that a level, to keep tuition anywhere from flat, which is very tough to do in the environment that we see in this country today, to 3 to 5%. And over the last 8 years, as a member of the Appropriations Committee, we was able to fund them at that level where they was able to keep those tuition levels to that point.
Okay, thank you, Senator Heidemann. Mr. Jones, I'll give you the same question. The University of Nebraska is one of the larger items in the state of Nebraska's budget. Do you think the percentage of costs split between students and the state should stay the same or change?
Well, I'm going to be in disagreement on that answer. I do not think that it can remain the same because I don't think our families can bear the brunt of the increased escalation of tuition costs, and that's a function of what's being available to them to offset that cost. Since the time that my opponent's been involved in the legislature, it is true the legislature has funded the university, which is a compliment to this state compared to a lot of other states. However, when the rate of tuition is doubled in those 8 years and the funding's only increased an average of 1.6% over those same years, it's obvious that the shift of that cost is in the lap of our students. I'm of the opinion, if education truly is a priority in this state, and it's been stated so in many avenues, then that has to be reflected in an increased support from the public sector, from the legislature, to help these families afford this education.
Okay, I'd like you to expand on that just a minute. I want to give you 1 minute to say, and I'll give Senator Hyman also 1 minute. Do you think the increase in cost with tuition we should put that in relationship to inflation costs, or is that not something we should consider in that?
I think it's going to be a factor. I think that's a part of reality. The common sense to it is you have to try to offset the speed at which that increase is occurring. In the case of tuition at Nebraska, it's more than doubled in the last 8 years. That's a reflection on the lack of keeping pace with the contribution from the state to help support the costs that are incurred by the student. So in some fashion, we have to really determine if it's a priority, then we have to put our money where the priority is. If there are other priorities, then we need to see why those are being used to trump education, if education is truly a top priority in the state.
Thank you, Mr. Jones. Senator Hyman will ask you the same question. Should we tie the cost of, or the increase of tuition to inflation, or is that something we shouldn't consider?
It would be nice to be able to do that, but there's different types of inflation, whether it's core inflation or wage inflation or tuition inflation for higher education. Those do vary. So I don't know what you would want to exactly tie it to. Getting back to something that he said, sitting on appropriations, we did look for priorities, and when you look at what state legislatures had to do to higher education in other states where they had tuition increases of 15 and 20%, we are very proud what we was able to accomplish in this state. And if you talk to the people at the university system, they are very grateful for the amount of money that the state of Nebraska was able to get to them and for our efforts in getting them the funding that they got.
Okay, thank you, Senator Hyman. Mr. Jones, you're going to start off with this next question. Do you support or oppose the current university policy on embryonic stem cell research?
I support the existing policy, which was developed in response to the law that was passed by the legislature. So the policy at the university is in compliance with the law that was written, which does indicate that we are not a state that's going to condone cloning and those types of research initiatives, but does outline the parameters under which the research can continue, and it was crafted by the legislature and signed by the governor. That's the venue where that policy needs to be looked at if there's concern.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Jones. Senator Hyman, I'm going to ask you the same question. Do you support or oppose the current university policy on embryonic stem cell research?
I support stem cell research, and I support stem cell research under the President Bush's lines that he had released. I was part of the compromise in the legislature, and I've had conversations with Speaker Flood, who was a very large part of getting that bill passed, and it was never the intent of the legislature, and Speaker Flood would back this up, to take the power out of the Board of Regents. It was still up to the Board of Regents to expand it or to leave it where it was at. And I actually, as a member of the Board of Regents, I want that power to be able to make that decision for the university system. So it was up to the Board of Regents whether they wanted to expand it or not. With the advancements of what we have seen in adult stem cells, where they can actually blank them out and reprogram and avoid the ethical and moral issues with embryonic stem cell, I think we might see this issue actually go away.
Okay, thank you, Senator Hyden. And Senator, you're going to get the next question. What would be your long-term goal for the University of Nebraska in these changing times?
One of the reasons that I'm running for the Board of Regents, that I want to make sure that they have a focus that continues with rural Nebraska and with agriculture. With the hire of Ronnie Green at the Institute of Agriculture and Natural Resources, they have become refocused. And I want to make sure that they stay there. I am not out to change the university system. I think it does a good job in this state. I want to encourage more than try to change. We have to, as a state and as a university system, continue to try to provide the highest quality education that we can afford at the most affordable price. and that is the university's top priority, and it will be my top priority as a member of the Board of Regents. The university is so much to this state when it comes to extension, issues in rural Nebraska. The Rural Future Institute is something I want to support very greatly. I've had conversations with Regent Chuck Hasselbrook, who was very instrumental in actually getting that. We've had phone conversation. He says, "Levon, when you get in there, I want to make sure that you keep that going." I says, "Don't worry, Regent Hasselbrook, I'm there already." So you want to focus on rural Nebraska. That would be my focus. Agriculture, extension, research, and affordable quality education.
Thank you, Senator Heidemann. Mr. Jones, I'm going to give you the same question. What would be your long-term goal for the University of Nebraska in these changing times?
I'm going to go back to the prior question for just a second. I want to make sure that we understand there was a difference between the topic of stem cell research and embryonic stem cell research. And I addressed the question regarding embryonic stem cell research. In terms of this new question, I think the mission of the university is outlined as research, education, and outreach. So all the things that I've talked about earlier in my opening in terms of affordable tuition and the mission to make that available to all the students of Nebraska is a top priority. We have to retain a real emphasis on recruiting our local Nebraska kids to be a part of that university system. I think the quality of the education and academic excellence cannot be compromised so that we're going forward and not backward, and that includes the research initiatives. And I think that our tie to agriculture, of which I'm a part in the rural community, is paramount. The Rural Futures Institute, I had an advance on that with Dr. Green when I met with him on the East Campus before it was announced. I, too, am a strong supporter of that initiative because it comes to us out here in the rural communities.
Thank you, Mr. Jones. That ends our questions. We're now going into the summation session. And Mr. Jones, you get to go first. Could you give us your 2-minute summation?
That goes fast.
It does.
Well, again, I want to thank all the members of the Chamber for hosting the event. I want to thank Senator Heidemann for joining me and allowing us to discuss these issues. I want to thank my family and supporters that are here. Again, I want to ask you for your vote. This is a critical year. There are 4 Board of Regents going to be elected in this election. 3 are going to be new members on that board, which will have a great impact on the direction the university takes. I came from a family farm. I've got the family history from a farming experience. So the morals, the values, the ethics, and the sense of hard work are all ingrained in me from the beginning of my experiences. I'm the only candidate in this race that has a graduate status from the University of Nebraska, with 2 degrees both in education at the bachelor's and master's levels. I think that's invaluable to have perspective on the decisions and how they're going to impact the students that are walking those campuses, paying those student loans when it comes at the time that they're successful and graduate. I'm an educator, businessman, so I've had experience in banking and starting and operating a business that's been blessed with great success. I've got a nice number of endorsements, including many senators, mayors, council members, commissioners, all of whom can be seen on my website, www.jonesforregent.com. I'd invite you to look at those. And my points of emphasis are affordable tuition, the continuance of the research policy at the university, academic excellence, quality education, and continued growth of ties to our agriculture and rural communities. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Jones. Senator Heidemann, would you like to give your 2-minute closing?
Once again, thanks for this opportunity to say a few words and to get our message and our views out there. I am endorsed in this race by U.S. Senator Mike Johans, Governor Dave Heinemann, U.S. Congressman Jeff Fortenberry, U.S. Congressman Adrian Smith, State Board of Education member Bob Evnen. Many of my colleagues are standing. They've worked with me. They know what I can do and accomplish. They're behind me. I'm very grateful that the Farm Bureau has endorsed me and supporting me. The Nebraska Cattlemen's PAC is supporting me, and Nebraska Right to Life has endorsed me. Those endorsements mean a lot to me, without a doubt. Those people and those groups have watched what I've been able to accomplish over the last 8 years and the respect that I have garnered and the leadership that I've built up and the relations that I've built up. And they understand that I will be able to take that experience and those relationships and be a Board of Regents member, and I will be able to take off because of my experience right away and those relationships that I've built up. And all those endorsements mean a lot to me. But the most important endorsement that I can get is yours. I would appreciate your vote on November 6th and your support. Thank you.
Thank you. On behalf of the Beatrice Area Chamber of Commerce, I'd like to thank you, Senator Hyde, and you, Mr. Jones, for coming down and sharing your thoughts with us. I want to remind everybody, election is November 6th, so please get out and vote. We're going to take a break for a couple of minutes, and we're going to come back with candidates for Norris Public Power District.